This is sound in poetry and how it is a tool for poets to add more meaning and emphasize certain parts, overall adding more value to their poems.
Poetry often comes with a rhythm and a rhyme. The musical sound of words, while pleasurable in itself, does not contribute solely to the overall impact of a poem. Meaningful sound, the words that mean things, carries a much stronger influence and impact of a poem. Meaningful sound and musical sound work together to push a message and convey themes through a poem. For example, the S sound in Surrey's line, "Calm is the sea, the waves work less and less," might suggest the sound of water. Sound and meaning working together causes euphony, a calming, pleasant sensation, and it's due to sound and meaning working together. The opposite relationship, when they don't work together, is cacophony, a harsh and discordant effect. These two effects can be used to generate specific styles and tones in which the poem can be read, which can also shape the meaning of a poem. Reading aloud the poem helps further decipher the meaning that an author might bestow upon the literature. Closing the divide between sound and meaning will create onomatopoeia, an attempt to represent a thing or action by a word that imitates the sound associated with it. Some examples are zoom, whiz, crash, and bang. Alliteration and assonance. Repeated phrases or themes tend to bring people joy. We tend to remember things that are repeated more often. Alliteration is a pattern of similar sounds in succession. This may be initial alliteration, which is repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of successive words, or internal alliteration, also known as hidden alliteration, the same consonant sound inside successive words. We recognize alliteration by sound, not by spelling, which further emphasizes the importance of sound in poems. For example, no does not alliterate with key, even though they start with the same consonant. Alliteration can also be a powerful aid to memory because alliteration draws our attention. Tongue twisters like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers is easy to remember because of the alliteration, and it can make specific phrases more significant. Assonance is the repetition of a sound of a vowel. This can be, like alliteration, either inside or at the beginning of a word, and it has the effect of connection and flow for the sound of a poem.
And rhyme. So the definition of rhyme is when words contain a similar vowel sound with identical following consonant sounds. Rhyme is unique in that it's a tool that sets poetry apart from ordinary speech, and it brings a sense of musicality and rhythm to poetry that otherwise would not be there, and the poetry might sound flat or boring or too close to prose to be seen as poetry. Rhymes work best, they're most effective, that is, when they're surprising, not predictable. It's not predictable with see, wind and, oh my gosh, breeze and, it's pleasing and it breathes through the trees. It's not effective when you can easily know what's next. They're best when it's surprising. It brings a sense of delight through this surprisement. And rhyme also groups similar ideas together as one rhyme connects to the next, drawing these connections that ordinarily wouldn't be there. Along with this, it emphasizes particular words and overall weaves a poem together as it draws constellations throughout the poem's various lines. There's a few different types of rhymes, including exact rhymes, in which the sounds following the vowel sound are exactly the same, such as red and bread and wealthily and stealthily. Slant rhymes have final consonant sounds that match, while the vowel sounds differ, which is moved and loved, bone and rain. You can see the similarities, yet they're not the traditional rhymes we're used to. Consonants is when the words have the same beginning and ending consonant sounds but have a different vowel. You might recognize chitter and chatter, reader and writer. Some more include end rhymes, which are rhymes that occur at the end of each line, and internal rhymes, which is when lines contain rhymes within somewhere in the middle. A few more types of rhymes include masculine and feminine rhymes. Masculine rhymes are usually one-syllable words or with stressed final syllables that are rhymed: jail and bail, divorce and remorse. Feminine rhymes are rhymes of usually 2 or more syllables with a stress on a syllable other than the last. So the first syllable in turtle and fertile, and intellectual and henpectual. So it sounds like the second syllable, or the third. Some more I rhymes are spellings that appear to rhyme but pronunciations differ, such as idea and flee, which appear to rhyme but they don't, which, as said earlier, attributes to the importance of sound in poetry. Echo verse, originating from ancient Greek poetry, is when the final syllables of lines are repeated as a reply or commentary. So, in the 1960s, rhyme declined in popularity as many poets thought that its uses were exhausted and that it wasn't a mature form of poetry. But some people have come out as new formalists and have returned to the use of rhyme in their works skillfully and in a fresh way that proves how rhyme can still be used today in an effective way. So, reading and hearing poems aloud. This is where we make the sound part literal. Often it helps to read poetry aloud as you understand it better, and it forces you to understand the poetry because you need to understand its meaning. So I should say you know where to give the proper emphasis and inflections where needed. While reading poems aloud to other people, you shouldn't unnecessarily emphasize rhymes because it might stilt the rhythm that would otherwise organically come about. However, with most poems, you can give a slight pause at the end of each line. Otherwise, connecting the lines together as if they were one sentence could make it hard to tell that there are rhymes at all. And then we have an example poem. It goes, "On my boat on Lake Cayuga, I have a horn that goes ayuga. I'm not the modern kind of creep who has a horn that goes beep beep." This poem is delightful, and there's specific tools that make it so. First, we have the use of onomatopoeia, which again is the use of words that convey the sounds that are made, and this builds to an end rhyme as well. So cayuga and ayuga being the onomatopoeia, as well as beep beep, rhyming with creep. No one could expect ayuga to come up in a poem, especially since Lake Cayuga isn't necessarily humorous, or it doesn't seem like you're leading up to a punchline at first. So it's startling to the reader to have something so silly, and as well as fitting in with the rhyme. So it adds a sense of humor to the poem, which makes it much more memorable and much more fun to read. So it emphasizes the poem through that. And that is it. That is sound in poetry.
Thanks for listening.